Part 1. The secret inside from the series. The janitor's closet is always locked you. Think janitor closets aren't that interesting until the one at Woodrow Wilson High creaked open by itself, and no one was around. Mark Thompson wasn't. The kind of guy who poked his nose where it didn't belong. Sophomore, tall, quiet, decent grades. The kind of student who sat in the back and kept his hoodie up even when it wasn't cold. But that Tuesday morning, while walking alone to class after a late pass from the nurse's office, Mark noticed something odd. The janitor's closet at the end of the science hallway had its door cracked open. Just a sliver that was strange. It was always locked. He'd tried it once in freshman year on a dare. Solid as a vault. No one ever saw the janitor unlock it either. Mr. Bellamy, the custodian, was rarely around, and when he was, he never said much, just nodded and shuffled off with his mop and keys jangling like spurs. But now, that door was open. At first, Mark passed it by, but after 5 steps, curiosity grew teeth. He stopped, turned around. No one else was in the hallway. The fluorescent lights above flickered, something they'd done for years. Always near that closet, like the bulbs were scared of it too. He approached slowly, almost against his own will. Inside the closet wasn't dark. A single bulb dangled from the ceiling, buzzing faintly like an old fly zapper. The light was just bright enough to show shelves of cleaning supplies, buckets, and an old wooden chair. And on the chair, a journal, leather-bound, worn, frayed edges, like it had been waiting. Mark stepped in. The door creaked slightly behind him. He glanced over his shoulder, then back to the journal. It had no label, just a looped black string holding it shut. He picked it up the moment his fingers touched the cover. The bulb above dimmed, just a flicker, enough to raise the hairs on his neck. He turned the journal over, curious. The inside pages were dated, the handwriting old, blocky. The first entry was from October 1994, Monday. Found another message behind locker 117, this time in red. Same phrase, not your time yet. Mark flipped forward. More entries, dates spanning years. Some scratched out, some written in a hurry, some smudged as if from sweaty hands. One page had what looked like dried ink, or something thicker. Then the door behind him slammed shut, hard. Mark jumped and dropped the journal. It hit the floor with a flat thud. He rushed back, grabbed the knob, twisted locked. He twisted harder, yanked. Nothing. Double quotes. "Hey," he shouted, pounding on the door. "Is anyone out there?" Silence. His phone. He grabbed it. No service. No bars. The bulb above flickered again, this time slower, almost rhythmically. Buzz, 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 like a heartbeat. Then it dimmed, not out, but low enough that the corners of the closet blurred into shadow. Mark slowly backed away from the door, his heart racing. His breathing grew louder in the small space. Too loud, he tried to calm it, to think, why was there no handle on the inside? He turned back to the journal. It was now open, though he didn't remember reopening it. A new page stared back at him. The handwriting was different now, sharper, jagged, urgent. It read, "You should not have come here." His chest tightened. Another flick of the light. Below that line, more words appeared, like ink seeping in real time. "The closet doesn't open unless it's ready." Then, faintly from the corner of the room, a sound knocking from inside the wall. 3 slow knocks. Knock, 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 dock. Mark's breath hitched. He pressed himself back against the door. The journal clutched to his chest like a shield. The knocking stopped, and then footsteps. But not outside, above, crawling, slow, deliberate, scritch, scritch. S.K. Rich. Mark didn't dare look up. Instead, he turned the page of the journal, hands shaking. This entry had only a drawing, a rough sketch of the closet itself, but from a different angle. In the drawing, the closet had no ceiling, and where the walls should have been were eyes. Dozens of them. He closed the journal, quickly, beneath his feet. The ground vibrated, the light flared then popped. Darkness, complete. Mark stood still, frozen, somewhere. Just past the shelves, something inhaled. Not a normal breath, it was wet, gurgling, like lungs filled with water. It didn't exhale. Mark didn't either. Seconds passed, then dash. The door clicked, unlocked. No sound of keys, no turning from the outside. Just that soft, metallic click. Mark didn't move. The breath behind the shelves had stopped. Was it gone? He reached for the knob, slowly turned, opened. The hallway beyond was empty, exactly as he'd left it. Bright, normal. He stepped out, turned around. The closet was closed again. Locked. He tried the handle. Solid. He looked down at the journal in his hand. He hadn't remembered. Picking it back up, and the last thing written inside, just before the page ended, in tiny, cramped letters. Now that you've seen, you keep it closed. Part 2. The strange diary entries from the series. The janitor's closet is always locked at first. The handwriting didn't look like much, just messy. Rushed pen strokes crammed into the yellowed pages of the journal Mark had found in the janitor's closet. But after the first few lines, something about it started to feel wrong. Not grammatically, not stylistically, but emotionally, like the words had been scratched in while someone was watching their last seconds bleed out, clinging to ink instead of breath. The first entry was dated October 12, 1986. His name was Leo. Sat in the back of every class, real quiet. One day he went to get extra chairs from storage and never came back. They said he ran away. I saw the closet open the next morning. The next entry came a week later. Claire, sophomore, talented artist. Her last painting was of a dark room with slits of light, looked like the inside of a locker. She was crying in class the day before. Her name disappeared from the attendance list the day after. Mark turned the page. The paper felt brittle, almost warm in his hands, as if it had soaked in the emotions of every hand that held it over the decades. The ink had started to fade, but the last line of each entry was always clear, always the same. When you read your name here, it's already too late. Mark's breath caught. He wasn't superstitious, didn't believe in ghosts, didn't even really buy the stories about the school being built over something old, something buried. But as he flipped through the pages, the tone began to shift. Earlier entries felt like diary posts, sad, distant, observational. Later ones, unhinged, desperate, some barely legible, others written entirely in capital letters, as if the writer had lost the ability to whisper and could only scream. The next few names blurred together. Kelsey, Anthony, Jonah, Sarah. Some had doodles beside them, eyes spiral symbols, jagged claw marks drawn with trembling hands. One entry had a splotch that looked suspiciously like dried blood. There was a knock from inside the closet. I asked who was there. No one answered, but the door breathed. Mark sat back against the metal shelves, The air in the janitor's closet felt heavier now, like the room was shrinking with every breath. He rubbed the back of his neck. It was damp with sweat. He turned to the back cover of the journal, but it didn't end like a normal book. There were more entries, dozens stuffed into the inside of the back flap, written vertically, diagonally, crammed between margins, and then in ink that looked fresher, almost like it hadn't even dried yet. Mark. He dropped the journal. It hit the concrete floor with a flat, unforgiving thud. His heart pounded. Maybe he was imagining things. Maybe someone planted the journal as a sick prank. Maybe it had always been in the closet and just happened to mention his name. Mark wasn't the rarest name, right? Except he hadn't told anyone he was going to open that closet. No one knew he was here. His phone was dead. The hallway lights had been flickering since second period. He picked up the journal again. Just to be sure, he flipped to the last page and saw a sentence that hadn't been there before. He was sure of it. "He's watching you now. Don't turn around." Mark froze. The closet was silent, except for the faint hum of the fluorescent bulb overhead. He swallowed hard, dared to glance over his shoulder. Nothing, just the wall and the closed door. He tried the knob again. Still locked. He knocked 3 times, hoping maybe someone walking by would hear him. No response. He went back to the journal. One entry near the middle caught his eye. It wasn't a name, it was a confession. "I wrote these because I thought if I documented them, they wouldn't happen again. But the closet feeds on memory. Every time we open it, it learns. Every time we write about it, it remembers. The only way to stop it is to forget." Forget, Mark thought. But how do you forget something that's carving itself into your brain? The final line wasn't written, it was etched, pressed so deep it tore through to the other side of the page. When you read your name here, it's already too late. Suddenly, the lights blinked out. Mark was plunged into darkness. He fumbled for his phone, just for some light, but the screen stayed black. Dead, the silence stretched until he heard it, a slow, deliberate breath. Not his, it came from the far corner of the room, then another, closer, and then a whisper. "Mark." He didn't scream, not yet, but something told him the closet wasn't going to let him out this time. And somewhere in the dark, the journal waited its next entry already, beginning to write itself. Part 3, Knocking at Midnight from the series. The janitor's closet is always locked. It started with 3 knocks. Not loud, not panicked, just deliberate. Like whatever was knocking, didn't care if you answered or not. It just wanted you to know it was there. Mark had just fallen asleep. His room was dark, except for the blinking blue light of his phone charging on the nightstand. The house was still. His parents asleep downstairs. The muffled hum of the dishwasher running its last cycle, normal sounds. Familiar dot, then came the knock, 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 knock. He sat up too fast, heart skittering, eyes scanning the room. Nothing, no one. He waited. A minute passed. Then 2, knock, knock, knock. This time, he was sure it came from his closet. Now, Mark wasn't the kind of kid who believed in monsters under the bed or ghosts in the attic. But ever since the janitor's closet incident, his grip on what was normal had started to feel thinner. He slid out of bed, crossed the room, bare feet cold against the wooden floor. The closet door looked the same as always, shut tight, a little scuffed at the base from where he tossed his shoes. But there was something else now. Something that hadn't been there before. A smell, old metal, dampness, dust baked by time, the same heavy, musty scent from inside the janitor's closet. He hesitated, then opened the door. Nothing. His jackets hung there. A few hoodies, a backpack, a shoebox of old art supplies. Nothing out of place, except the floor. The inside of the closet was coated in a faint layer of grayish dust. Not the usual household kind. This looked ancient. It smelled like forgotten basements and rusted pipes. And near the back wall, something had disturbed it. 3 small smears, like fingers had pressed into it, then dragged away. Mark didn't sleep much that night. The next day at school, things felt even more off. The halls were still crowded, the lunchroom noisy, teachers droning on about whatever, but there was something in the way people looked at him or Dee. I toured his friends waved, but didn't stop to talk. One teacher paused during roll call, frowning at the list, like something didn't line up. When he got home that evening, the air in his room felt colder than usual, and the knock returned. This time at 12:03 a.m., exactly same rhythm. Knock, knock, knock. He opened the closet again, still empty, but now there were more smudges, longer drag marks in the dust, and at the very back, etched faintly into the wood with something sharp. See you again tonight. Mark didn't tell anyone. What would he even say? That the closet was haunted. That the journal he found at school had followed him home. That the knock wasn't just a sound anymore, but a presence. One that felt patient and closer instead. He tried something new. He sprinkled baby powder across the closet floor, closed the door, set his phone to record flashlight on, camera facing the door, propped it up with a book, hit record, then waited. Midnight came. The ticking of the clock on his wall grew louder. 12:02, 12:03, knock, knock, knock. He stared at the door, throat tight, nothing moved. In the morning, he replayed the footage. At 12:03, the light flickered for just a second, and in that flicker, frame by frame, he saw it, a long, shadowy smear slide across the bottom of the door, just barely visible in the powder. No foot, no hand, just pressure, as if something had pressed from inside the wood itself. The knocking was no longer coming from inside the closet. It was coming through it. At school the next day, Mark walked past the janitor's closet again. Still locked, still silent, but taped to the handle, someone had left a yellow sticky note. It read, "You brought it back." He looked around. No one else seemed to notice. He peeled the note off slowly, heart hammering, stuffed it into his pocket, and for the first time, he realized something. He wasn't hearing the knock because he opened the door. He was hearing the knock because something wanted out, and now that it had followed him home, it didn't need the closet anymore. Part 4. The former janitor from the series. The janitor's closet is always locked marked in. T sleep much after the 3rd night. Not since the knocking had started. It wasn't just the closet anymore. It was the bathroom door, the attic crawl space, the underside of his bed. Always 3 knocks. Always at midnight. Always followed by that smell like bleach and old soil. The scent that stuck to the janitor's closet. By Friday, he was so tired his eyes ached. He couldn't concentrate in class. Couldn't stop glancing at the hallway outside the chemistry lab. Couldn't stop wondering if anyone else noticed the flicker of movement in windows that shouldn't reflect anything at all. During lunch, he sat with his tray untouched. Across from him, his friend Kevin scrolled through his phone. occasionally mumbling about fantasy, football rankings. Mark wasn't listening. His eyes were fixed on the entrance to the teacher's lounge across the cafeteria. The door was propped open with a mop bucket. He stood suddenly. Bathroom, he muttered, though Kevin hadn't even asked. But he didn't head for the restroom. Instead, Mark slipped around the edge of the cafeteria and down a hallway. He wasn't supposed to be in. At the end was a locked maintenance door, and to the left, the entrance to the archives room, old school records, equipment logs, maintenance reports, stuff no one cared about anymore. But Mark cared. He needed to know who used to clean this place. He needed to know who had left that journal. The room was cold, and the light above flickered in slow, sick pulses, like it wasn't sure whether to stay on. Shelves lined the walls, most of them labeled with years: 1992, 1993, 1994. Bingo. Mark yanked down a box marked Personnel, Janitorial Staff, 1994. Inside were yellowed sheets, typewritten and curling at the corners. Most listed supply orders, staff schedules, and time-off requests. But then, there it was. James Bellamy, Jim Bellamy. Employed from 1987 to 1994. Status: missing. Disappeared during a school night shift. Police report filed. Case unresolved. There was a photo attached. A black and white staff portrait. The face. Mark had seen it before. In the hallway outside. The janitor's closet. In the reflection of that little window on the closet door. It wasn't a memory. It was something he'd actually seen. His hands trembled as he snapped a photo of the file with his phone, and then he hesitated. Was that ink? The corner of the folder, a fresh black smudge. He opened it again. There, on the final sheet of Bellamy's employment record, a name had been added. His name, Mark Travis, typed neatly, in a different font. Dated today. His stomach dropped, backed away, heart thumping in his ears. Who added that? His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. He kept the list going. Mark's breathing quickened. He ran, back through the hall, past the lockers, past the cafeteria, into the bathroom, locked himself in a stall, tried to calm down. He stared at the message again, then at the photo of the staff file. It had changed. The screen flickered for a split second, then came back. In the image, his name was now circled in red. That night, Mark lay in bed with the lights on, but it didn't help. The shadows at the edge of the room felt thicker, more aware. At exactly 12 a.m., 3 knocks echoed through his bedroom, not from the closet this time, from under the bed. He didn't check, he didn't breathe, he didn't sleep, and he didn't notice the book on his nightstand had been moved. The janitor's journal now lay open to a new page. It hadn't been there before. At the bottom, written in red, "When you read your name here, it's already too late." Part 5. Who opened the door? From the series, the janitor's closet is always locked. It wasn't supposed to open again. Mark whispered it like a prayer, as if saying it softly might somehow undo what had already begun. It was Friday night. Woodrow Wilson High stood empty, save for the low hum of vending machines and the flicker of overhead lights that hadn't been replaced since forever. Mark stood just outside the main entrance, phone in one hand, flashlight in the other. Beside him were 2 people who still believed him. Jenna, sharp-tongued, skeptical, loyal, and Ben, the quiet type who never spoke unless it mattered. They didn't come for fun. This wasn't a dare. It wasn't some dumb paranormal club stunt. It was something heavier, darker. The janitor's closet had opened again earlier that week, and this time, a sophomore named Leo Marquez had been seen walking past it after lunch, and never seen again. His parents thought he ran away, but Mark had seen the door open itself just as Leo passed. No one believed him except now Jenna and Ben did, because they'd seen the journal. They'd seen Leo's name scribbled in red ink. They slipped in through the side door, the one near the old gym. The latch never quite worked right. The building groaned as they entered, like it didn't want them there. Lockers lined the hallway like silent sentinels. Their footsteps echoed to loud the air. It was stale, and the silence wasn't just quiet, it was thick, like the school itself was holding its breath. "Let's just get the photos," Jenna muttered. "We document what's in there, maybe. Record if the door moves on its own, then we're done." "Right," Mark nodded. "We don't go inside. Not again." The hallway stretched ahead, dim, yellow, sickly light from tired fluorescent bulbs. And there, at the far end, like a bad memory waiting to replay itself, the janitor's closet. It was closed, but not locked. Mark could tell the latch hung loose, like someone had opened it and never bothered to secure it. His chest tightened, like his heartbeat didn't fully belong to him anymore. Like something inside that closet recognized him, welcomed him back. Ben raised the camera. Jenna turned on her voice recorder. Mark reached out, slowly, and touched the handle. It swung open. No resistance. Inside, buckets, broken brooms, cleaning supplies so old their labels had become ghosts. But something new sat on the floor. A shoe, just one, black, scuffed, with mismatched laces, red and white. "That's Leo's," Ben said quietly. "He always wore different laces." Mark didn't answer. He was staring past the shelf where the journal used to be. Now stood a mirror, oval-shaped, grimy, smudged over with something that looked like old fingerprints. He stepped closer, wiped the glass with his sleeve, and the reflection, wrong. Jenna was missing. In the mirror, it was just Mark and Ben, and behind them, a figure, tall, crouched, watching back away. Mark said quickly. Jenna blinked. "What? Back away from the door? We're leaving now." But before they could move, slam, the closet door crashed shut. The lockers rattled. Ben yelped. Jenna cursed. The camera hit the floor. "The hell," Jenna began, then froze. The handle was cold. Too cold. Frost spread along the edge. Ben's voice dropped. "Someone's on the other side." Mark shook his head. "No one's there." It locked itself. Then came the sound. A shuffle. Shoes brushing against dirty tile. They turned together. The closet wall wasn't a wall anymore. It had opened. A tunnel now stretched into the dark. A hallway that didn't belong. Something was breathing inside, wet, slow, raspy. Mark could barely breathe. "We're not alone." Ben stepped back, his heel slipped. He caught himself beside the camera. The lens was cracked, but it was still recording. Jenna raised her flashlight, shining it into the new hallway. It twisted, bent left, then right, like it didn't want to be mapped. Smears lined the walls, handprints, all dragging downward. "Leo's in there," she whispered. But Mark didn't answer. He was staring at the mirror again, because a word had appeared. On the glass, Mark, written in fog, still forming. "Guys," he choked. "We have to go." But Ben was already moving. "Ben," Jenna hissed. "I heard him," Ben said. "Leo, he's calling me." "No, he's not," Mark said. "That's not Leo." Too late. Ben stepped into the hallway and vanished. The flashlight hit the ground. The light went out. Silence. Mark didn't breathe. Then the closet door opened from the inside. Jenna didn't wait. She grabbed Mark and ran. They burst back into the hallway. Gasping, the school looked the same, but off, like it had been staring at them while they weren't looking. Behind them, the door hung open. Ben was gone. The next day, no one remembered him. Not the teachers, not the students, not even the school database, only Mark and Jenna. That night, at home, Mark opened the journal. A new entry had appeared. Ben Carson gone into the hall that wasn't there. It always takes one. When the door opens again, it'll want more. And beneath that fresh ink, Mark. Blake, next. Part 6. Whispers in the Dark from the series. The janitor's closet is always locked. It started with a voice that sounded like his own, not in the obvious way, not like a recording, not like an echo, but like a version of himself whispering from behind a closed door, just barely too soft to hear, and yet unmistakably familiar. Mark sat up in bed, drenched in sweat. The sheets were tangled around his legs. His fingers shook as he reached for the lamp. Click, warm light. The clock blinked back at him. 2:03 a.m. again. Every night, the same time. At first, he blamed stress or guilt. He still hadn't told anyone. What really happened the night Dylan disappeared? The school only knew what the news reported, that Dylan had gone missing. There were posters, a few candlelight vigils, then silence. The world moved on, but Mark didn't, because the whispers were getting louder. The next morning, he avoided his reflection. Something in his eyes looked ... off ... not tired, alert too. Alert, like they were watching him back. He went through the usual motions: cereal, bus ride, locker, HOMEROOM. But everything felt delayed, like walking underwater, like the world was just a half second off. That's when he started noticing things. A girl whispering into a locker, then slowly closing it, like sealing a secret. A janitor's cart left outside a hallway where no janitor had ever worked. No leaks, no lights out, no reason to be there, and the smell, bleach, mixed with something older, earthier, like the scent from the janitor's closet. But it had followed him home by second period. The whispers weren't waiting for night anymore, they came during class, bleeding into his mind like static cutting into a radio station. He turned to the student beside him. "Did you hear that?" They blinked, smiled awkwardly. He stopped asking, but the whispers didn't come back. "You left the door open. We're not done." Sometimes they whispered his name, Mark, drawn out, like wet paper tearing in slow motion. And the worst part, sometimes he answered, not out loud, just dash in his head. "What do you want from me? You saw, you read, now you write. Write what? Your end." That night, the whispers came with images. He didn't remember falling asleep, but suddenly, he was standing in the school hallway. It was dark, too dark, even for night. Lockers lined the walls like open mouths, yawning, waiting. Footsteps echoed, but they weren't his. The janitor's closet loomed at the end. It wasn't locked this time. It was open, no inviting dot as he stepped forward. The walls seemed to breathe. The overhead lights flickered, not in panic, in rhythm, like a heartbeat. He reached for the handle. Mark jolted awake, gasping. His hands were dirty, actual dirt, under his fingernails, on his sheets, on the soles of his feet. He stumbled to the bathroom, leaning over the sink. The mirror fogged with his breath. His reflection stared back, eyes wide, too wide, not tired, not human, then creak. A floorboard outside his room. He froze. No one else was home. Then it whispered, not in his head. From the hallway, back to the closet. He didn't remember grabbing his keys, didn't remember the walk, but suddenly, he was standing outside the school. Midnight. The front doors should have been locked. They weren't. The hallway lights buzzed overhead as he stepped. Inside, the silence was thick like breathing cotton. His footsteps echoed strangely, delayed, like someone else was walking just behind him. Half a step off, he turned the corner. There it was, the janitor's closet, ajar, waiting, one flickering bulb above, buzzing like a trapped fly. Warning or welcoming. He stepped closer, inside. It was different, deeper, as if the closet had unfolded into something else, something not meant to exist. Shadows pulsed in corners that had no shape. The air smelled of mildew, of old dirt, of secrets buried too long. The journal was still there, but now it sat atop a stack of dozens, hundreds, all identical, all worn, all whispering. Mark picked one at random. His hands trembled. He opened it. Names. Page after page of names. Desperate. Handwriting. Looping. Erratic. Then he saw it. At the bottom of a page, Dylan Ashford, and just below it, a fresh line. Mark Delanether. Ink was still wet. The page turned on its own, blank, except for one line. When you hear your own whisper, it's already too late. Mark dropped the book. A gust of air blew from the back of the closet. But it wasn't wind. Not exactly, more like a memory being exhaled. He backed away, but the door slammed shut behind him. Total darkness. And then, the voice, his own voice, from the shadows. We wrote our names. Now someone must erase them. Part 7. The hidden blueprint from the series The Janitor's Closet is always locked. I shouldn't be showing you this. Mr. Kellen whispered, unfolding a yellowing paper that smelled like mildew and dusted secrets. But you need to know what's under this school. It started as another quiet Monday, the kind that dragged its heels across the floor, heavy with the weight of nothing interesting ever happening, at least. On the surface, Mark sat alone in the library, flipping through old yearbooks and dusty science texts, trying to distract himself, but his mind kept drifting. Back to the closet, back to the knocking, back to the whispering dot, and now the name, Jim Bellamy, the janitor who vanished in 1994. The same name scrawled across the first page of the strange journal, still hidden in his backpack, tucked under his bed like a curse he didn't want to admit he'd invited in. Mr. Kellen, the school's aging art and drafting teacher, shuffled past with a thick tube of blueprints. He paused, stared at Mark. Just a second too long. You're the one who's been snooping, he said softly. His voice wasn't accusing, just tired. Mark froze. What? You think nobody notices what doors you open? The man's eyes were dim, but knowing. Some of us still remember. Some of us were here when Bellamy disappeared. That's how Mark found himself in a private storage closet later that afternoon, surrounded by boxes labeled supply invoices. Class skeleton, do not touch. Mr. Kellen flicked on a single dangling bulb. Its light was warm and dying. He unrolled the blueprint onto a scratched drafting table. It was bigger than anything Mark had ever seen. The paper stiff, yellowed with age. It showed the school as it stood today. Hallways, classrooms, boiler room, staff parking lot. But then Mark saw them, faint red lines, barely visible. A second map, hidden beneath the first. A structure. Beneath the structure, Kellen muttered. Mark leaned in. What is that? That Kellen's finger trembled as it touched the paper. Is the original building, before it was a school. This land used to be North Creek Sanatorium. Shut down in the 60s. City repurposed the bones. Built on top of it. Cheap. Convenient. No one wanted to remember what it used to be. Mark followed the red outlines, his chest tightening. The cafeteria used to be the patient dining hall, the gym, the therapy wing, and the janitor's closet. Was the morgue, Kellen finished quietly. Mark stepped back. His heart thudded in his ears. The refrigeration unit's gone now, Kellen said. But the pipes are still under there. Bellamy found them. He got obsessed. Said the building was remembering itself, that it wanted to become what it used to be. Mark swallowed hard. Why didn't anyone stop him? Oh, we tried. Kellen's voice dropped, but then he vanished. And after that, the school got quiet. Too quiet. Mark stared at the blueprint. There's more under there, isn't there? Kellen didn't answer. He rolled the paper back up with a brittle sound. Didn't meet Mark's eyes. Whatever you found in that closet, he said, you need to let it go, before it finds a way back. That night, Mark couldn't sleep. The journal pulsed in his mind, especially that page, his name, freshly inked, like the paper had breathed it into existence. He tried to ignore it, but the whispers got louder. Under the bed, calling, he finally pulled it out. There was a new page, no date, no signature, just 4 words, centered perfectly. The blueprint is alive. Mark slammed it shut. The next morning, things felt off. In the west hallway, the lights flickered. Maintenance claimed nothing was wrong. Room 114, ice cold, even though the thermostat read 75. One student said she saw red lines under her desk, like faint pulsing veins. Mark went to find Mr. Kellen, but his room was empty. A substitute stood awkwardly at the front. Mr. Kellen's on leave, he said. No further explanation. Mark waited until the bell, packed his bags slowly, waited, watched, when no one was looking. He slipped into the art supply storage. The blueprint was gone. So were the boxes from the day before, but something remained taped. To the inside of the supply closet door, nearly hidden under layers of paper scraps, was a message, scratched in charcoal. It's not buried, it's waking up. That night, Mark dreamed of the school, breathing. Not metaphorically, actually breathing. The walls expanded and contracted like lungs. The floor vibrated with a low, steady heartbeat. Lockers opened and shut in rhythm, and at the center, the janitor's closet, its door pulsing like a wound, whispering his name in Jim Bellamy's voice. Mark shot awake, gasping. The whispers weren't just dreams anymore. They were clearer, sharper, and now they gave him instructions, where to go, what to find, back to the closet, back to the blueprint, and worst of all, they told him something else. He wasn't the first, only the next. Part 8. The man behind the door from the janitor's closet is always locked. The man in the photo had kind eyes, but they weren't the eyes Mark had seen in the hallway late at night. It started with a name, Jim Bellamy, The name everyone whispered about. The janitor who vanished in 1994. The one Mark kept seeing around school. Or at least, he thought it was him. After the blueprint discovery and Mr. Kellen's sudden leave, Mark couldn't sleep. He lay in bed that night, the journal tucked beneath his pillow, the ceiling fan above clicking steadily, like a metronome counting down to something inevitable. At 3:07 a.m. A dream woke him, one of those dreams that felt too crisp to be fiction. He stood alone in the hallway, right outside the janitor's closet. The door wasn't locked. It swung open slowly, but inside, no mop, no broom, just an old yearbook resting on a pedestal, glowing faintly. Mark jolted awake, sweaty, gasping, and he knew what he had to do. The next day, he skipped fourth period, headed straight to the library. Ms. Brandt barely looked up as he slipped past the front desk into the archive room, where yearbooks were stacked like forgotten relics. He started from the top. 2010, 2005, 1999. Nothing, then finally. 1994. The cover was cracked at the corners. The laminate yellowed with time. The smelled paper and aged ink felt oddly comforting. He flipped to the staff section, and there he was. James A. Bellamy, Custodial Services, smiling awkwardly. Grey jumpsuit, neatly combed hair, small glasses, faded mustache. But it wasn't him. Not the man Mark had seen near the east stairwell. Not the one who always mopped in silence during after-school study hall. Not the man whose reflection once didn't match in the cafeteria window. Mark stared at the photo. A chill crawled up his spine. The man he knew, if he ever was real, was tall, gone wrong. Eyes too deep, movements too slow, like someone pretending to be human. So who had he seen? Mark yanked the journal from his backpack, flipped to the page marked with his name, just under the line, "When you read your name here, it's already too late." There was a new line, written in the same scratchy, crooked script that hadn't been there yesterday. "The man behind the door isn't who you think." Mark felt cold all over. He brought the yearbook to the front desk. "Ms. Brandt, do we have any other photos from this year? Staff pictures, records?" The librarian looked up slowly. Her eyes were glassy, detached. "That yearbook is the only one from '94 we have," she murmured. "The others were lost in the boiler flood." Mark blinked. "Boiler flood," she nodded. Too slowly, the pipes under the janitor's closet, they burst, ruined a bunch of storage. Mark opened his mouth to ask more, but she had already turned away. That night, the knocking started again, but not from the closet. This time, it came from the mirror. 3 soft taps. Mark froze, toothbrush in hand, eyes locked on the glass. His reflection stared back, but something flickered just over his shoulder. A blur, a shape. He turned, nothing there. Back to the mirror. His reflection had caught up. The next morning, Mark did something he never thought he'd do. He asked for detention, on purpose. He needed to stay late. He needed answers. And most of all, he needed to be alone at 4:12 p.m. with golden sunlight bleeding through the windows. He stood once again in front of the janitor's closet. It looked ordinary to ordinary. When he reached for the handle, it turned on its own. Inside, the air felt thick, like the room had been holding its breath for decades. The closet was empty, almost, except for a single standing mirror leaning against the far wall. Dust clung to the glass, but through it, a faint outline, a man's silhouette. Mark stepped closer. The shape stepped closer too. He wiped the glass with his sleeve and saw the janitor, but not the right one. No mustache, no glasses, eyes like black pits, swallowing the light. His grin, impossibly wide. Then the man in the mirror raised his hand and knocked. Tap, tap, tap. Mark stumbled back, knocked over a mop bucket. It clattered across the floor. When he looked up, again, the mirror reflected only him. The next morning, Mark returned to the library, flipped open the 1994 yearbook. The photo was gone, torn out in its place, a fresh page, no name, no caption, just a blurry photo. Mark standing in front of the janitor's closet, mouth slightly open, eyes wide with fear, and beneath it, one line, custodial trainee, Mark T. Part 9. Unable to escape from the janitor's closet is always locked the second he stepped out of the closet. Mark knew something was wrong. It was the silence. Not the kind you get after the bell rings. Not the pause when an air conditioner clicks off. No dash. This was the kind of silence that feels alive. Heavy pressed into your ears, like water filling your skull. Mark's sneakers squeaked softly on the tile floor as he stepped into the hallway. Greenville High, or something that looked like it. Same beige walls, same scuffed lockers, same flickering lights by the science wing, but no voices, no teachers, no announcements, not even the soft hum of fluorescence. Even his own footsteps felt muted. "Hello," he called. It echoed once, then vanished. Swallowed, he turned back. The janitor's closet was still there, door shut now, not locked, just closed. Mark pulled out his phone. No signal, no bars, not even a battery icon, just a black screen, pulsing faintly, like it wanted to wake up, but didn't know how. He started walking. First stop, the main office, exactly as he remembered it. Same cactus on the receptionist's desk. Same outdated field trip forms in a leaning pile. But the computers were off, and the calendar still read October 1994, and everything felt too clean. Not a single stray pencil, no gum wrappers, no water bottles at the lockers, as if the whole school had been frozen in time right after a perfect janitorial sweep. Not real, just a replica. He ran to the window, pulled up the blind. Outside was not trees, not night, not even sky, just an endless, colorless fog, like the school floated on a blank, white sea. He tried the front doors, locked. The gym, locked. He slammed his shoulder into the fire exit until bruises bloomed beneath his shirt. Nothing budged. When he returned to the second floor, he noticed it. Locker. #113. His locker. Except it WASN single quotes T. Inside was a sweatshirt he didn't recognize, a spiral notebook filled with symbols, and a photo pinned to the back. A photo of him, standing in this very hallway, taken from behind, like someone had followed him. Mark spun around. The hallway was empty. He backed away slowly, eyes scanning every shadow. Then he heard it not. Footsteps, breathing, soft, raspy, close, coming from the vents above. Next, he ran too. The library, the lights were on for the first time. Books stood perfectly in place, except one shelf. The books there weren't missing. They'd been neatly stacked on the floor, like someone rearranged them, intentionally. On the librarian's desk lay a white envelope, plain, no name. He opened it. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Red blocky letters. The longer you stay, the less You remember? Mark blinked. Stay where? He bolted back to the closet. Tried the handle. Locked. He shouted. Kicked. Pounded. Until his fists throbbed. Still locked. He slumped to the floor. Time passed, or maybe it didn't. The clocks was stuck at 3:14 p.m. The bell never rang. Somewhere along the blur, he fell asleep and dreamed whispers behind walls. Numbers, names, his name, again and again. When he awoke, there was chalk in his hand, and beside him, someone, something, had written, "Don't forget who you were, or you'll become what's left." He ran, faster than he ever had. Hallway after hallway blurred, but something had changed. The posters, no more Go Tigers, no more Homecoming Spirit Week, now dash, black and white flyers, twisted faces, names he didn't recognize. Jacob H, Lena B, Mark T. All labeled the same. Lost, never recovered. Eventually, he stopped. The hallway had looped, no matter the stairwell, no matter the turn, he ended up here again. Outside the janitor's closet, or what used to be the closet. Now, it was boarded shut. Red markings covered the planks, scratches, symbols, claw marks, or writing done in panic. Mark sank to the floor, back against the wall. The silence pressed in around him, thick, familiar. Then the intercom crackled. That voice, dusty, faded, to calm, welcome Mark. No one had used the intercom in this place, not until now. Take your position. The others will join soon. And then, silence. The closet door clicked, then opened. Mark didn't stand up. He didn't run. He didn't scream. He understood now. This wasn't a place you escape from. This was a place you replace someone in. And soon, someone new would come. Just as curious as he once was. Part 10. The first night shift from the janitor's closet is always locked. They told him the closet was always kept shut. Not locked, just shut. Like it had a habit of opening on its own. Eddie Sanders didn't believe in ghost stories. He believed in overtime pay, broken mop buckets, and staff shortages. That's why, when he applied for the night janitor job at Woodrow Wilson High, he didn't blink at the decades-old rumors. The vanished janitor, the kids who disappeared from the yearbooks. Every school had its legends. His first night, quiet, too quiet for his taste. Just the buzz of the vending machine in the faculty lounge, and the faint hum of distant fluorescent lights. The building smelled like floor wax, old textbooks and time, as if the walls had been holding their breath for years. At 2:17 a.m., Eddie took a break near the old science wing. The hallway there felt colder, untouched by heating, untouched by memory. That's when he noticed it. The janitor's closet door cracked open just an inch. Maybe two, enough for light to spill out. Yellow, pulsing, not LED light. Something older, filament, flickering. Eddie frowned. No one said the closet was in use. No one said who last used it. But hey, he was the janitor now. His closet, his school. He pushed the cart slowly. Each wheel squeaked in perfect rhythm. Squeak, squeak, squeak. At the door, he heard it, knocking, soft, measured 3 knocks. Then silence. He waited. 3 more. He opened the door. It was empty, mostly just cleaning supplies, extra bulbs, a broom with split bristles. But also, something else, on the floor. A journal, worn. Black, tied shut with a thin red string. Eddie knelt, brushed off the dust, thick, heavy, on the cover. In faded gold ink, If you found this, you're next. He snorted, cute, untied the string, opened the first page. There was only one word, Mark, and then a voice, not a scream, not a whisper, just a voice right behind him. "Hey, Eddie." Spun around, no one there, but now the door was closed. He hadn't touched it, had he? He reached for the knob, it turned easily. He stepped into the hallway. Something had changed. No vending machine hum, no buzzing lights, just stillness. 3 steps and he froze. The banner above the lockers. It no longer said, "Welcome to Woodrow High." Now it read, "Rehearsal number 4, participant, Edward Sanders." He looked around, no cameras, no speakers. Then intercom crackled, that dusty, hollow voice. "Thank you for joining us, Mr. Sanders. Mark has been waiting." He ran down the hall, up the stairs, into the auditorium. All empty, chairs lined up too perfectly, curtains drawn but swaying. He burst into the front office, reached for the landline, dead tone, the wall clock. 2:17 a.m. hadn't moved a second back. At the closet the door was wide open, the journal gone in its place, a mirror, small, cracked, unsettling. In the reflection, Eddie saw himself, and behind him, Mark, pale, sunken eyes. A sad, crooked smile. He didn't speak, he just leaned in and whispered something against the glass. Eddie couldn't hear it, but he could feel it. Something like, "You know me now." The lights above him flickered. The closet door creaked shut, slow, final. The next morning, staff arrived like normal. They noticed the janitor cart, abandoned near the science wing. But no, Eddie. His phone was inside the closet, still recording. 1 file, 6 seconds. On repeat. Knock, knock, knock. Hey, knock, knock. That night, the door cracked open again, and someone whispered from inside, "I used to be Mark. Now, it was someone else's turn."
Hello everyone, I'm Ceoz Stories. Thank you for staying with me until the very last moment. If that story gave you chills, made you jump, or simply kept your eyes glued to the screen, don't hesitate to hit the like button to support the channel. Share this video with friends who enjoy these sensations too, and don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts, or even share strange things you've personally experienced, because I'd love to immerse myself in your stories as well. If you're eager to keep exploring untold mysteries, shadows that remain nameless, then subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. A new door will open every day. Are you ready for the next story?